Okay. Do you want to talk into the microphone?
Hello, can you hear? Oh, that's high.
Yeah, I think it's fine. You're usually low, so it's actually not so bad. My voice tends to be higher pitched than yours. So yeah, okay, all right. Hey you, and welcome. Look who it. Well, folks, you already heard his grumbly, golem-like voice, his cackle like a witch. Look who came crawling back to the That Chapter podcast. Frankly, for one, I've got a big old shit-eating grin on my face because look who walked in my door. Keith.
You just can't keep me away, man.
I know, but you tried to. You tried to, and then you returned to the That Chapter studios, tail tucked between his legs.
That's it. And you've given me a firm talking to.
I did.
There's no more holidays allowed.
He begged. You know what? I'm not going to tell you what he did to get his seat back in the podcast. We'll leave that for your imagination. But all I can say is Keith is back.
I am back. I'm excited to be back.
Well, folks won't have heard... Actually, well, no, I take that back. Folks wouldn't have heard you last week, but I posted the Listener Tales Part 2. Thanks for sending in your spooky stories, folks. Send them in at Mike... Wait, what? I can't even remember email address. I think it's mikeohello at gmail.com. We did a round 2 of your spookiest tales. Again, I have a Gmail document whenever somebody sends in a story, I just copy and paste it into the document. Yeah. I read through it first, and then I copy and paste it, if it's a good one. And it's like 60 pages of stories.
But like quality stories.
Oh, the stories are really good, but it's just... I mean, keep sending them in.
Yeah.
I think we should try and make it like maybe at least once a month.
Yeah, that sounds great.
We should do it.
They're a lot of fun.
They're a lot of fun to record. Yeah, so keep sending them in, and thanks so much for sending them in, and I hope you enjoyed part 2 of the Listener Tales. And if we didn't get to your story, just hold on to your butts, because we'll probably get to it if it's a good story. If it's not, you won't hear it. But anyway, let's slow our roll here for a second. Keith,
yes.
You went on vacay, baby.
I did. I went to France.
France. You were eating baguettes and snails, drinking maybe wine.
I swear to God, literally the first day we arrived, the first thing I saw was a man on a bike with a baguette.
Hey, listen.
Like, I've arrived in France.
And you're like, wow, well, I wonder where I am. You did all the French things. You drank lots of wine, ate baguettes. You had a 16-year-old mistress. All the classic French things.
Yeah, all the classic
things.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, no, sorry. The recording software I was using told me I'm about to delete your recording. And I was like, this is 2 minutes of gold here.
Quality stuff.
This is quality, that podcast. Yeah, exactly. We don't have to record it again, but the banter won't be fun. So here, tell us about the folks at home want to know. You abandoned them for a week, so you better have had a hot dog and good time.
We had a great time. France is fantastic. So we got the ferry over. So we drove down, and as soon as we got off the boat, had to drive like 5.5 hours.
You got the ferry from Dublin to
Cherbourg.
Yeah,
and then we drove like 5.5 hours south then.
If you believe, Did you sing that when you arrived?
We didn't actually. That would have been good.
See,
man. Next time we need to bring you. I'll bring you on a trip.
I should be your wife. This is things we actually no. In fairness, you would be my wife if we were a couple.
Oh, okay. Well, you are the breadwinner.
Yeah, you got long hair.
Okay.
Yeah, you always ask me to open doors for you. When you hold out your hand, you hold it out kind of fist first, as if you're expecting people to kiss your hand whenever you meet somebody new.
After we record, I do like to cuddle.
You do like to cuddle, yeah, exactly. And I just kick you out. Yeah. So tell us.
Just some taxi fare. Get out of here.
Exactly. Get out of here. Yeah. Who?
But it was great. It was the drive was long because we had a toddler in the back. That literally, I was saying earlier on, that whole Simpsons thing. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? It's true. She did it the whole way. So that wasn't fun. But
you're this close to just opening the door and saying, "Be gone, child."
Oh, there was a couple of tracks.
You're French now.
You're one with France. Yeah. But it was great. It was challenging as well, driving on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, because you were in, for the folks at home, in Ireland we drive on the right-hand side.
No, we don't.
Wait, no, we drive on the left hand. Wait, what do we do?
We drive on the left.
The steering wheel's on the right hand side. It's right hand drive. Is that? But we drive on the left hand side of the road. We have right hand car.
Yes. Yeah.
So as they do in the UK and in I think Japan and Australia.
It's actually it's most. I think most countries were colonized by the British. So you have like I know there's a good couple of countries in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, as you said.
Japan does, and they weren't colonized by anybody.
That's true.
They just chose the correct side of the road to drive on.
There we go. Yeah, India as well, possibly.
Man, that must kind of suck if you're in a country, because at least the thing about most of those ones you just listed is we're all islands. But if you're in a country that's like touching other countries, how does that work when you're at the border? Does the road
just switch?
Yeah.
Jeez, that would be awkward, wouldn't it?
I know. Folks at home who are listening, write us in. We want to know. You know, Mike and Keith are interested.
That's what we're really interested in. The
Tell us a
rules
story.
of the road.
Exactly. We are not a spooky, unsolved mysteries horror podcast anymore, we decided. We're a Rules of the Road podcast.
We're pivoting the podcast. So anyway, roundabouts.
Okay. Excellent.
Amazing, yeah.
Yes.
But
Okay.
but the driving was challenging, definitely on the wrong side of the road. Only drove... I accidentally went on the left at one point, but it was okay. It wasn't my fault, though. I was drunk at the time.
Fair enough. Classic.
No, I wasn't drunk. Don't drink and drive. You've heard of her first.
Yeah.
But we went to this amazing place in France, which I've been dying to talk to you about because we should go. Just me and you.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Just the boys.
Just the boys.
That chapter podcast.
I'm definitely going to get the name wrong, but it's like Puy-de-Faux. Which sounds like pedophile.
Yes, it does.
But it's not. So it's
Keith, I don't think I want to go here at all. I don't know where you're taking me, but it's not a place for just the
just
lads.
get in the van.
Yeah, Mandy, hey, listen, you're in France and there's a place called Pedophile. This is the most French thing I've ever heard.
So yeah, I'm definitely saying it wrong. Puy-de-Faux, I think. So it's Puy
Okay.
DU and then FOU. You know, Puy-de-Faux. I know, I'm definitely saying it wrong.
Okay, what was there?
Okay,
let's get to the next part of the story because this is getting weird.
So it's like it's a team park, but there's like
The team is young children.
young children, absolutely. It's tailored around children.
This is like that South Park episode.
Yeah. So it's a team park. There's no roller coasters. But It's basically shows.
Shows, interesting.
Yeah, so you go to different shows throughout the day. We managed to see, like, you could literally be there for 3 days. And still
Did you
not
see a
everything.
man kill another man?
Yeah, we did actually. So there was one of the shows we went to see was the Vikings. So they put on it's this huge outside theater place, and you sit on in the seats and you're looking down, and then they kind of put on a short play of just like a happy little town, and then the music changes, and then like this ship just comes out of nowhere from like behind the crowd, and then they crash into the water and all these men jump off. There was people on fire. There was a guy dragged by a horse. An eagle came out of nowhere and took a guy down.
Holy fuck, this sounds cool as
There
shit.
was a guy on fire and then jumped onto a horse. The whole thing was
Oh
the
my
horse was
God,
on
that
fire.
sounds badass.
It was mental. So that was one of the ones within the Vikings. And then we went, the next show was like medieval what's that? Jousting.
Oh, nice.
Sit down. There was a lot of lads doing tricks on horses. Like a guy done a backflip off a horse, Mike.
Whoa.
It was crazy. And then
Is that legal?
in France it is.
You figured it out.
Yeah, and then again, like all hell broke loose because it was all in French, so I don't really know what was happening.
Yeah.
But I was just there for the vibe.
Yeah.
Then like the wall came down and there was a huge castle in the background. The whole castle moved towards us, turned around, went on fire. People were jumping out of the castle. Mayhem. So that
Holy
was like
shit, this sounds magical and amazing.
Honest God, like there was parts of it. It was like watching a movie. It was like watching. It was like CGI nearly, you know. Some of the stuff they were doing was like, how the fuck did they do it? I had no idea.
Yeah.
Then we seen like there was a Colosseum as well. Went to Colosseum. They had this chariot racing. The middle of this Colosseum then where they were doing like some sword fight. That turned into a boat at one point. They were firing arrows at people, and then like there was people in the cage to fire the flaming arrow at the cage.
Wow.
The cage went afire. So yeah, I seen many people die.
Whoa,
But
that's
it was,
cool.
Man, it was amazing. We need to go. And for the whole day, for me, my wife and child, for the whole day, it was like €93.
Well, that's pretty good.
Really
it's like
good.
€30 each. I presume there's probably some kind of storyline here, but obviously they were speaking
It was all French.
French. So
Yeah.
all you heard was Sacre bleu.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, me and my wife were going, beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm
beautiful.
beautiful.
All right, so 2 thumbs up for Keith.
Oh, yeah, big time, yeah.
For pedophiles and for France, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely advise going to Puy-de-Faux.
Okay. Let's make sure we pronounce that very carefully.
Yeah.
It's probably called something completely different.
I'm so sure. Yeah, I should really look it up.
Okay, so yeah, we're in Mike's new office, which he's made. Folks at home who watch the videos will have seen it.
Oh, by the way, congratulations on hitting 2 million subscribers. Well done, man.
Thank
Well
you
done.
very much. Thanks to the listeners who made it possible. Listen, it's good. No, it's great. It's really, really cool to hit 2 million. When I started out YouTube one time and, things started going well, purely by accident. The only goal I ever actually had was hit 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That was the only goal. And then somehow I hit 1 million. Now I've hit 2 million. So it's cool. I'm very grateful to people for supporting the channel. It really, really means a lot to me. But you know what? People don't want to hear me be honest and genuine. They want to hear me make jokes. And Keith, you are my hype joke. Somebody described you very funnily on Twitter as you're my personal joke hype man and also resident dad joke teller. So let's get into this whole episode of the That Chapter podcast. Today we are telling the story of the Butcher Baker, the story of Robert Hansen, the human hunter. It's actually quite an interesting story because Keith, again, did all the heavy lifting. You were researching this while you're on vacation, even.
I did. I brought a book and I read a book. Great book, by the way. So the book was called The Butcher Baker, The True Story of Robert Hansen, the Human Hunter by Geneva Ortiz. Excellent book, really good resource. I highly advise giving a read. But
yeah, it's an interesting story because I knew the name Robert Hansen. Not, by the way, you got confused with this and I got confused with this because about a year ago I made a video on a different Robert Hansen who's like the worst spy in American history.
Yeah.
It's really a completely different story. Yeah. Equally as interesting, but very, very different because it's about CIA and KGB and spies and stuff like that. Yeah. But so this Robert Hansen, I always was under the impression because I'd heard like the stories of like he was in Alaska and he'd bring women up to his cabin in a remote Alaskan wilderness and then he'd hunt them in the woods.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's actually not really what happened at all.
No, it's not. And
there's like, it didn't even happen to any of them. And I don't even know where the rumor came from. I think it's literally just like Chinese Whispers or whatever you call that game, where it's like
telephone.
Telephone.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it's called. Where you just keep getting the story just gets more and more
elaborate.
Yeah, exactly. That's not actually what happened at all.
That's it. That's the thing. Like that whole story, and that's what I heard, and that's why I pitched to you. I was saying we should do Robert Hansen about this guy that hunts women in the forest.
Yeah,
like, it's gonna be a crazy story. And then I actually went looking. I was like, oh, none of that happened.
Yeah.
But it's just that's a great story to tell. But I think this guy was just a fucking loser.
Yeah, he really was.
He really was.
Yeah.
Which I think that's the side of the story we're going to get to today.
Oh yeah. This guy fucking sucks. But it's a really interesting story. Equally as interesting as I think if he was a human hunter in his little cabin. So yeah, you know what? Let's give it one of them damn goos.
Let's do it.
It was a cold evening in Anchorage, Alaska on November 15th, 1971, when 18-year-old Susie Heppard was driving home alone. As Susie was stopped at a red light, something caught her eye. She turned to look and saw a man staring at her from the car that had pulled up beside her. Now, this man, he was a fairly normal appearance, though somewhat dorky. He was average height and build, with a receding hairline, glasses, and what seemed to be acne scars all over his face. Despite his ordinary appearance, his stare sent a chill down Susie's spine, so she gave him a small, polite smile and then turned away. As soon as the light changed, she immediately, vroom, sped off. When Susie finally got back to her apartment, all she wanted was a hot shower and to chill out after one of them long-ass days at work. Hey, listen, Susie, I'm right there with you. Suddenly, however, she heard a knocking on her door.
Who that?
Who that? That's what I would say. Occupied, I'm not here. When she answered it, fear washed over her when she found herself face to face with the man she had politely smiled at in traffic earlier. He had followed her. Oh. Done, motherfucking done. I love it. She just went, this is not me. Wrong address. I'm not the rest of these are. This man nervously spoke with a stutter and creepily asked her out on a date, which Susie politely declined before he left. Hey, listen, in my experience with the ladies, there isn't much I like more than you creepily following them home, following them to where they live, and then asking them out. 100% success rate.
Oh, the whole courtship of stalking, it's
a winner every time. Winner, chicken dinner. Susie hoped that would be the end of it. However, unable to accept the rejection, the man showed back up a week later and attempted to kidnap Susie at gunpoint. Unfortunately, he was quickly arrested.
When he showed up, so first of all, he acted like it was coincidence that he was there.
The second time, he's like, oh.
No, like the first time.
Oh, the first time?
Yeah,
okay.
Because he knocked on the door and she opened up. He's like, oh, I was just looking for another apartment.
Hey, funny, I was just staring at you creepily across traffic. And
funny we meet here.
Yeah.
So when Susie, she said that she didn't know the place that he was looking for, he asked to use her phone book. So reluctantly, she agreed. I guess like hoping, to keep things calm. Don't upset him. Just like hopefully he gets in and leaves.
Yeah.
But once inside, so he started rifling and flipping through the phone book he just didn't take his eyes off her. So he's like flicking through it, but staring at her.
He's really bad at this.
Terrible. Then finally, he said that he couldn't find what he needed and then he left. But it was then, before leaving, that he'd asked Susie out on a date, which she declined, I guess, as you said, hoping to never see him again.
Yeah, and then he turned up, though, unfortunately for Susie, a little time later. Now, unfortunately, as we will see time and time again in this case, he quickly secured bail after being arrested, and he was shockingly released back onto the streets. Susie's ordeal marked his first attempted kidnapping, and he learned from his mistakes, not to stop for anything, but to become more skilled at kidnapping. Tragically, numerous other women in this story were not as fortunate to get away, and they met a horrific fate. That man, ladies and gentlemen, was infamously known as the Butcher Baker of Anchorage, Robert Hansen. Robert Hansen, the eldest of two, was born in Iowa on February 15th, 1939. His father, Christian Hansen, was a Danish immigrant who owned a bakery, and his mother, Edna Hansen, was of German descent. The Hansen family lived in the small city of Pocahontas. In the early 1950s, the population stood at just under 2,000, a figure that had seen little change since the last census in 2020, which reported a population of 1,867. Robert's father was extremely strict and had high expectations for his son. Every day, Robert began his shift at the family bakery at 2 a.m. Jeez, that's very early, isn't it?
It is very early.
Yeah. And then after finishing work, he would go to school. Well, no wonder he turned into a serial killer.
I know, right?
Understandably, this left him exhausted, causing him to frequently fall asleep in class. When Robert appeared to be left-handed, his deeply religious father forced him to switch to his right hand, as he should. I mean, what, do you want a left-handed son? I mean, come on. My God, the shame. Well, the neighbors think.
The devil's hand? I don't think so.
Not in my house. This resulted in him developing a severe stutter that he would carry throughout the rest of his life.
My dad, when he was in school, so he went to school with my mom and dad, they were there with the priests and nuns, and there was a lad in my dad's class, and he wrote with his left hand as well, and the priest basically just bet the bejesus out of him until he wrote with his right, but the same thing, he developed a stutter.
That's really interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I wonder, is it something to do with the part of your brain that controls which hand you write with is also responsible for your speech or something like that? Why is that common?
Yeah, I'd say it's a big change mentally. My daughter's left-handed, and it's funny because when she writes...
Keith, you never told me. Your daughter's left-handed. Oh my God.
I was just waiting to bring it up. I knew how you'd react.
You're in too deep now. I can't bar you.
When she writes her name, she writes it. Sometimes she'll write it backwards. So she'll.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So she'll write her full name perfectly, but backwards.
But it starts like with the last letter of her name. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I say like if we're like now, like she's 4. She's not in schools.
Yeah.
Like proper school yet, but like this lad who the priest bet, he was obviously like used to writing with his left hand. He was I think he was about like 8 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
So like that's a huge mental shift. Kind of the breaks of no wonder it kind of just feck you up.
Yeah, well, I know you're going to get started with your daughter early and get her to start writing with her right hand.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I'll get the big belt out.
We like to have a little joke on that Talker podcast.
Don't
take anything we ever say seriously, please. Now, unlike the other serial killers we've discussed in the past, we didn't come across any evidence suggesting that Robert's father was an alcoholic or physically abusive to his family. While he does appear to be a bit of a bastard man, he was no more so than a lot of other fathers of his era. Now, we're mentioning this because we don't want to imply that Robert's, tough childhood was the cause of his later horrific acts. That was all Bobby on his self. As usual, we come with this again and again, like the nature versus nurture thing, and I don't know, I was actually questioned about it once. And I genuinely can't come up with a good answer for it because, I mean, so many serial killers and these murderers and sick bastards, it's like they had a really shitty childhood or beaten up or whatever. Yeah. But there's also like so many other killers who had an amazing childhood, who were perfectly normal, that grew up in a loving family, had everything they wanted, nothing bad happened to them, and they still went on to do horrifying things.
And it's still also, there's a ton of people out there who have had really difficult childhoods and they grew up to be standing members of the community.
So many people have had tough childhoods and they didn't go around murdering people. So as Robert entered his teenage years, his situation did not improve. He developed painful and severe acne that left him with lifelong scars. Now, I'm sure working around powdered sugar in a bakery all day didn't help his skin much. He's just like wolfing now. Like powdered sugar.
Snorting powder.
Yeah. His stutter also worsened significantly, making it difficult for him to string a sentence together. As a result, Robert became a target of bullying by both boys and girls, turning him into an outcast and a loner. This led him to seek solitary activities such as fishing and hunting, which he soon discovered he was quite skilled at. Maybe he might one day want to hunt the ultimate game. Interesting.
So after graduation in 1957, they actually spelled his name wrong in the yearbook. Like, honestly, nobody liked this kid.
Wow, people, just did not give a shit about him.
They just didn't care about him. So Robert, he finally got a taste of something sweeter than those donuts he was baking. Freedom. Sort of. He joined the Army Reserves at Fort Dix in New Jersey, but at least he was over 1,000 miles away from his father telling him what to do all the time. So while there, he got a chance to get away for a few days with another soldier, a friend, to the Big Apple, New York City. While there, they decided that it would be a good time to, pop the old cherry. So they decided to get a couple of sex workers and they had a good time. Well, his friend had a good time at least. Hansen, he didn't like how little control he had over the woman. So he didn't enjoy it all, which I guess is the kind of feeling he'd chase in his later years. But after some time, Robert, he returned back to Pocahontas. This could have been a really good chance for him to get, like a fresh start.
Right.
But he opted in to return to his job at the bakery and falling back into his loner label. No friends around. He still found really difficult to still make friends, but he soon discovered that teenagers were easily impressed.
Hey, listen, it's always a sign of a very cool guy who hangs out with much younger, easily impressionable people. All the coolest guys hang out with teenagers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, real cool dude.
Do you remember back in school, you'd always there was always someone that was they were 21, 22, hanging around with 16, and you're when you were 15, 16, you're like, that guy's cool.
That guy rocks.
And then you get to that age, what the
what the hell's he doing? Pathetic loser.
What's he doing?
Yeah, what the fuck are you
so weird.
Literally because everybody else knows he's a pathetic loser. The only people who can impress her who don't know any better.
Yeah.
So that was Robert.
But
this is a lifelong thing we'll see with Robert. He was a pretty pathetic loser. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for him. Obviously he had really bad acne and he had to stutter from using his left hand, which is that's pretty, you kind of feel sorry for him at that point, because that is pretty shitty. The fact that he was beaten for using his left hand. Nobody should have to go through that. But at the same time, it's he did not improve. He just delved deeper. He's I'm gonna be even more of a fucking loser.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was the worst.
Yeah.
So he began hanging around with a group of high school kids who admired him for his guns and hunting gear. Yeah, he's such a loser. But in 1959, so he took on the role of drill instructor for the Pocahontas Junior Police, likely trying to seek some sort of control and authority over people.
Who would take him seriously as a drill instructor at all?
I know, yeah. With teenagers, apparently.
Yeah.
So surprisingly, he also found himself a girlfriend around this time. So they bonded over their shared experiences of being unpopular in high school, and their relationship, it seemed to flourish. So they were finally starting to look up for old Bobby.
Okay.
However, there was still one thing bothering him, the itch for revenge. So he just couldn't shake off the grudge he held against the school that had made his teenage years so miserable and tough and horrible. So Robert and his gang of misfit high school friends, they probably gave themselves a name as well, like Robert's Rascals or something.
Robert's Rascals.
Something lame like that. Yeah, so they decided to hit the school where it hurt the most, their buses. So their plan was pretty simple, very simple in fact. So they waited until the whole town was distracted with a local basketball game, and then they went to the bus barn, threw gasoline everywhere, and then just set it on fire. He would have got away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling kid pals of his, those rascals, Robert's Rascals. So they just couldn't resist bragging all over town about their shenanigans at these parties. So eventually their loose lips, they finally caught the attention of the wrong person, and Robert, he got arrested. So not long after his arrest, Robert, he admitted to burning down the bus barn that was just a warm-up. So apparently their grand scheme involved targeting the town's water tower.
The old water supply.
The old water tower.
I love this. This is great.
They even talked about blowing up a police officer's house.
I would have been one of Robert's Rascals, honestly.
Robert's Rascals, yeah.
This sounds kind of cool.
Hashtag Robert's Rascals.
Let us know your thoughts on Robert's Rascals in the console.
So remember, all this information he gave, remember, they only had him for burning down the bus barn. So all this information he gave up freely, and for no other reason than just being a complete and utter idiot. So Robert, he was charged with arson then on May 29th, 1961, and was eventually sentenced to 3 years in a state reformatory in Anamosa on October 9th, 1961.
Robert's parents were obviously pissed, but they stood by their son. However, their embarrassment at being labelled the town arsonist, he didn't have an arse in his trousers by the time this was over, it soon became too much. They sold their bakery and made the move to Minnesota, where they bought the Stony Point Resort at Leech Lake. I love it. Of all the lakes you buy property at, the one called Leech Lake, it's this might not work out well.
Do you want to go for a swim in nah.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. When Robert was paroled in May 1963, he happily joined them. It turned out to be exactly what Robert needed. He kept himself busy painting boats and cabins, playing host to fishing enthusiasts, and enjoyed plenty of hunting. And throughout all of this, he even met a girl. a young woman named Darla Heinrichsen, who his parents had hired to help clean the cabins. The two were like two of them damn peas in a pod, once again bonding over their shared high school woes. Before long, they tied the knot and settled into a life in a trailer park before Robert landed a job at a bakery. It's like, why is he going back to work at a bakery again? His life sucked working at a bakery. And hey, listen, well, you do what you know, I suppose, but I mean, come on. Things seem to be on the upswing once more, but apparently the quiet life just wasn't enough for dang Bobby. He craved some more trills, and so he turned into a full-fledged kleptomaniac.
This is like it's so interesting because Robert, he really seems like the typical like serial killer. You're just going to see him escalate and escalate and escalate further and further throughout this whole story, and he literally like ticks off all the boxes to become a serial killer. Like collect all, and become
exactly.
A serial killer.
Yeah, collect the whole booklet.
Yeah.
He stole radios, sporting equipment, bikes, clothes, basically anything he could get his grubby little hands on. Then, on February 22nd, 1965, Robert got busted for stealing fishing lures valued at a whopping $11 from a sporting goods store. But Darla, being the lovely wife that she was, convinced their pastor to vouch for Robert's character, leading to the charges being dropped. It was a real wake-up call for Robert. Not stealing, no. The wake-up call was that he took away from this was that, hey, having a squeaky clean image as a devoted family man and a religious fellow, that could come in handy. When he got in a jam, again, I love this idea. It's like, you just made me a better criminal by letting me off.
I know.
This did not work on me setting me straight. Now I know what works to not get in trouble again.
Yeah, I won't do that again, but not the way you think.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Robert continued stealing whenever he got the chance. Later, he described that, quote, getting away with the crime would cause him to nearly ejaculate from the trill. Stealing? They say it's even better than busting a nut. In 1967, Robert was caught stealing money from his employer, and this was the final straw. His boss was all set to press charges until Robert managed to convince him he'd be taking a job at a different bakery out of town and would be gone for good. That is when Robert and Darla packed their bags and headed to Anchorage, Alaska. While Hansen did continue his kleptomaniac ways, they soon took a backseat to even darker urges of the wolf.
The sexual kind.
Yeah, I have this obsession with just saying of the wolf. Everything's dark like this. I don't know. I'm weird. Hey, listen, who knows what goes on in my dark and twisted mind? Even I don't know.
Wolf tots.
Yeah. Alaska was considered one of the last frontiers on Earth, boasting vast, untouched landscapes. Anchorage had witnessed a dramatic transformation in the 1960s when our story is taking place, when the discovery of oil beneath its surface with some of that dang old black gold drew in a flood of workers from the lower 48 states seeking employment on the pipeline. I got a pipeline I'll employ you right here, pal. This sudden population boom, along with the transient nature of many workers and their disposable income, fueled a demand for various services, including those provided by sex workers. Very nice. Brothels, bars, strip clubs, and gambling joints, this sounds like my kind of thing, seem to pop up on nearly every corner, catering to the needs of those seeking entertainment and companionship. Women came and went, earning some cash through stripping or sex work, and then eventually moving on back to the lower 48 states. It was a bustling scene, but also the perfect hunting ground for a serial killer.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Tell us more, Keith.
So within like this town, this sudden like economic inflation, it led to this higher cost of living, which like that reduced the quality of life for those already living on the breadline, and struggling to get by. So there was a lot of young and desperate women who were they were recruited as topless dancers with promises of like easy money, and they were also offered housing as well. But the steep rent that quickly pushed them into debt, forcing them to turn to street work just to make ends meet. So they were like led in with all these promises. Oh, we'll give you a house and you just need to take off your top and do something. But like they were barely making any money in that just to cover. So they had to do sex work just to make a bit more cash.
This sounds like that whole sex trafficking. This is basically sex trafficking.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. There was some sex workers, they were also part of circuits, which, not circuses, circuits.
Yes.
Pronounce that better. Where they moved between different brothels or red light districts around the US. So this allowed them to maximize their earnings by tapping into different markets. But it also helped ensure that their clients, they wouldn't become too clingy.
of course. They get their regular Johns.
That's it.
He was like, oh, we're actually in love. This woman I'm paying is actually in love with me.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, better not spend too much time in any one location.
Exactly, yeah. So cut out all that. And so it just kept moving from town to town. And just like when people got too clingy, just kind of move on.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, this left many women in the area just extremely vulnerable and, unlikely to be noticed when they went missing.
Yeah.
Which is what you said, perfect hunting ground for a serial killer.
Yeah, it is extremely sad. Like, they're all often, we've said it before, they're often called the less dead or the invisible people. When they're not seen, it's just assumed that they moved on or they're gone somewhere else. And unfortunately, the police often just don't care.
They just write off, which is something we're going to see a lot in this story, by the way.
Yeah. So, speaking of serial killers, when Robert landed in Anchorage, he took up a job as a cake decorator before purchasing a duplex where he and Darla made their home. And life was on the up and up again, especially with plenty of hunting opportunities in Alaska. He even joined the Black Sheep Bowmen, an Alaskan archery association, showcasing his remarkable skill with a bow. By 1969, he'd even etched his name into the record books of Pope and Young, a bow hunting and conservation group renowned for documenting game animal measurements in the state. Through Pope and Young Bow Hunter Club, he even made a friend, John Sumrall.
Oh, friend.
Bow hunting friend. They even found time to attend the local Lutheran church, although Robert wasn't exactly a regular attendee. Despite this, he was still seen as a decent bloke around town. Later on, they upgraded to a larger home and Darla was expecting their first child in 1971. Following the birth of their son, Christy Hansen, Robert began to pull away emotionally from his family and threw himself harder into his hunting. However, it seemed that wasn't quite enough excitement for Robert, and he began to get that itch again where he needed something more thrilling in his life. Maybe he just needs to find some more Robert's Rascals.
More Robert Rascals, yeah.
Set part to a bus, impress some kids. That'll do.
Maybe do some abseiling, if you're looking for thrills.
There's a lot of ways to do it. Do not involve bloodshed. So this brings us back to where we began. November 15th, 1971. When Robert was stopped at a traffic light and he noticed an attractive young woman in the car next to him, and he made the decision to follow her home. As mentioned at the beginning, Robert was arrested for the attempted kidnapping of Susie Heppard. But due to his status as a loving and religious family man in the community, his defense was easily able to persuade the judge that he was a decent folk who just got caught up with something unsavory. Listen, having covered true crime, people who have decent jobs and nice families and go to church all the time, they never secretly disgusting killers and perverts behind the scenes.
Oh, they couldn't be.
Ever.
Yeah. This is the first case I've come across.
Oh yeah, me too. This is blowing my mind right now. He was only charged with assault with a deadly weapon and was let out on bail. But it didn't take him long to find his next victim. On December 19th, 1971, so only a month after Susie Heppard, Robin Patterson was struggling to drive home due to the harsh Alaskan winter conditions. She pulled into a nearby cafe, intending to grab a hot cup of tea while leaving the engine running to clear her fogged up windows. It was there, in the parking lot, where Robert Hansen abducted her at gunpoint, threatening her with death if she didn't comply with his demands. After binding her hands with leather shoelaces, he drove her south on the Seaward Highway. Along the journey, he repeatedly veered off the road, expressing his desire to have sex with her. He attempted to kiss her, made her undress to prevent any escape attempts, and told her he wanted to slash her bra with his knife. Desperate to delay what was coming, Robin protested, saying, "No, I don't want to do it in the car," hoping it would buy her more time and a chance to break free.
The weird thing with the bra, Robert, he actually said to her at one point, "I'm going to tear your bra off with my knife." And she said, "No, don't do that. It's too expensive." As you said, trying to delay it. And so he didn't, which is it's strange that he respected that.
Well, it costs you a lot of money. I don't want to destroy it. They eventually got to a motel where he rented a room. He ordered her to get in the bath, and afterwards he proceeded to bind each of her limbs to the 4 posts of the bed. As Robert began to strip off, she noticed... This story is kind of getting dark, but this is pretty funny.
Yeah.
She noticed something which I think it's how we should all remember this piece of shit. He had a really weird ass dick. Really weird. He was he had a full chub on, but his member was extremely short, and the tip appeared to be very deformed.
Yeah.
That's how I mean, the story is only going to get darker from here. We're only starting out with it. Like, everything up till now is pretty much a backstory, so the story is going to get darker as we go forward, but
we're just at the tip of the weird dick.
Yes, exactly. We're going to go down to full shaft, but always just remember his dick is fucked up looking. And that's probably also a very sensitive part of him. But we should remember that about Robert Hansen. His dick was fucked up. And
we should, yeah. That's how we should remember.
Yes, let's point and laugh. So, Robert began to sexually assault her, but he was unable to finish. He was expecting her to fight back, which is what got him off, but Robin's freeze response kicked in, which is a common response when your body's inability to move or act against a threat. Eventually he gave up, and he lost all interest. When they got back in the car, Robin had hoped they were going to go back to Anchorage, but instead, Robert drove deeper into the woods. When they were nice and secluded, he took her out of the car, cocked his, hey, listen, choice of words there, and then told her to start running. Not giving him the satisfaction of hunting her like an animal, she dropped to her knees and begged him to let her live. She even pretended she enjoyed their time together. Something she said worked because he decided to let her go. However, not without some collateral first. He took her license from her purse, wrote down all her contact information on a piece of paper, and he put that piece of paper into his wallet. He said that if she told the police, he would kill her family. With that, he untied her and drove her back in the car to the cafe in Anchorage, and before leaving, he said, quote, "I wish we met under different circumstances."
That's such a,
what a pathetic piece of shit. Hey, listen, you know where I kidnapped you and sexually assaulted you? I just wish things were different. A number of days went by, and Robin Patterson stayed true to her word. She didn't tell a living soul about the horrific ordeal Robert Hansen had put her through. This is a very normal response for a lot of sexual assault survivors who sometimes feel ashamed by what happened to them or just want to forget it ever happened. Perfectly normal. And in this case, Robin was also dealing with the fear that Hansen knew where herself and her parents lived after he wrote down all her information. Then, on the 27th of December, 1971, Robin read something in the Anchorage newspaper that made her sick to her stomach. The body of a young girl named Celia Beth Van Zanten, who had been missing for 2 days, had just been found. Her partially naked corpse was found near the bottom of a 50-foot ravine. A gag, which had fallen out of her mouth, was hanging around her neck. Her chest was cut up, and her thighs were heavily bruised, suggesting sexual assault, which the autopsy later confirmed. They were able to tell she'd been alive when she'd been thrown into the ravine, because she still somehow managed to climb 20 feet back up the slope, where, unfortunately, the sub-zero temperatures finally took her. That's so fucked that she was still alive when he threw her down off this cliff, and she tried to. Man,
it's horrifying. There was a couple of things when I was reading through it. They're not 100% sure if either she was thrown or she was running to get away and kind of accidentally launched herself over it. So I guess we'll never really know, but I don't know what's more terrifying. Because they did find some tire tracks kind of going in circles at the top of the cliff. So it was kind of he was kind of looking for her, but she accidentally kind of ran off. But both are equally horrifying. But the police at the time, they actually thought that this may have been the work of Gary Ziegler, another Alaskan serial killer. That's right. There were 2 active serial killers in Alaska during this time. So yeah, you really weren't lying when you said Alaska during this period was the perfect hunting ground for a serial killer. But in the end, though, there was not enough evidence to suggest Gary Ziegler had done it. So that theory fell through, and the cops, they were just back to square one.
Listen, when it rains, it pours. You don't just have one, you got 2. 2 of these motherfuckers. Then, the police caught a break in the case. A local sex worker who was an informant for one of the officers reached out, saying she believed she had encountered the killer they were searching for. This woman was Robin Patterson. After seeing Celia Van Zanten in the news about her body being found in a ravine, her guilt was eating away at her, and she couldn't help thinking that this could have been her also. So she bravely fought against her fears and reached out to her handler, hoping she could prevent any other victims of this man. She just knew that whoever killed Celia must have been the same guy who attacked her. Robin recounted the entire ordeal, detailing how she'd been abducted at gunpoint and taken to a motel where she'd been assaulted. He then drove her into the wilderness with the intention of murdering her, but she managed to talk her way around it. However, as a precaution, Robert Hansen recorded all her contact details on that piece of paper, putting it in his wallet, and he warned her that if she ever reported the incident to the police, he would come after her. So from Robin's account, the police managed to track down the man's contact information based on the motel where he had taken her. They brought him in for questioning, and when asked to empty his wallet, he did so without any fuss. And lo and behold, nestled among his belongings was the slip of paper with Robin's details, just as she described exactly where she said it would be. However, just when they were about to grill him about the incriminating paper and the information he had, one of the officers piped up, insisting they needed a search warrant to ensure the evidence wouldn't be deemed inadmissible if and when it came to court.
This is one of those times where you just wished cops didn't do the job.
Yeah.
Like they were doing the right thing, obviously, to make sure
that it was all legit.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done it.
While they scurried off to get the paperwork sorted, other officers escorted Robert to the prison. Before processing him, the correctional officers conducted a thorough pat-down search, and as luck would have it, Robert noticed an officer pulling his wallet out of an evidence bag to take stock. Seizing the moment, Robert mentioned there was more cash hidden within the wallet, and he asked for it back, and the rookie officer handed it him over. Robert then took the opportunity to remove the damning piece of paper from his wallet and just stuff it in his mouth and eat it. Give it back. However, another officer caught sight of the sneaky move and searched Robert again, discovering the crumpled piece of paper in his back pocket. "What's this?" the officer inquired. Robert replied, "The people who are going to raise my bail. I need that piece of paper." Now, oblivious to the crucial nature of that piece of paper, which was all the proof they needed, the officers, they did jot down the information, but they gave it back to Robert Hansen, completely unaware a vital piece of evidence would be lost forever.
So frustrating.
Now, Robert was never positively linked to the murder of Celia Van Zanten. However, they could still go after him for the kidnapping, assault, and sexual assault of Robin Patterson. Unfortunately, though, with that crucial evidence now lost, the case boiled down to a he said, she said scenario. Robin's testimony versus Robert's denial, or as the defense framed it, the word of a sex worker versus that of a well-respected, devoted family man deeply embedded in the community known for his religious devotion and employment at a bakery. Who's gonna win? I'll let you guess. Hansen even managed to get 3 individuals, one of whom was a reverend, to testify in his favour at court. Robin's case was falling apart before her very eyes. However, if you remember, Robert was still on the line for Susie Heppard, the woman he followed in his car at the very beginning of the story and held at gunpoint. Robert, he was still out on bail for that attempted kidnapping. However, Robert's defense had an ace up their sleeve and brought in a psychiatrist who diagnosed Robert as being, quote, schizophrenia susceptible to dissociative episodes where he would become violent. That basically said that Robert went through these episodes, and when he did, he had no memory of what the good old get out of jail free card. Listen, I didn't know what I was doing.
I blacked out.
The kidnapping and assault charges were dropped in exchange for Robert's admission to rape. During sentencing, the judge was moved by the testimonials from Robert's friends, witnesses, and the psychiatrist. As a result, Robert Hansen was sentenced to 5 years in prison. However, within 3 months, he became eligible for parole and limited work release at a halfway house. Robert Hansen would be back on the street within no time at all. And this time, he wasn't going to take kidnapping, attempted kidnapping, or anything like that for an answer. He was hunting his next victim. And we will get to the wild-ass second half of this story in our episode next week. Part 2 of Robert Hansen, the Human Hunter. Coming whenever next episode is out.
Next week.
Next week. Well, it could be a previous week if they're listening to this in the future.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So it's the next episode. Hey, listen, it could be. Maybe you're going to listen to it right now.
Maybe you've accidentally listened to the second part first.
Oh, if you do, if you have, sorry. Go back, read the titles, dummy. You probably have part 1 in it. All right. Well, here, listen. Now we have Keith here.
Yep.
You've heard his dulcet tones. Keith, you were gone for only 1 episode, but it felt like longer.
It did feel like longer.
Yeah, I know.
In our real world time, it was 2 weeks, so it was a long time away.
It actually was a long time away. I was busy. You were busy. I was working on videos. I was traveling down to Killarney in County Kerry. Just County Kerry.
Oh, jeez, boy.
Oh, jeez, boy. And you were in France on the ferry doing your thing, but now we are reunited. Much
back.
like Robert Hansen was reunited with the streets to search for my victims. I see the parallels already. All right, I don't know where I'm going with this. Sometimes I wonder if I'm having a stroke mid-podcast with the shit I come out with. All right. Here, listen, folks, thank you so much for listening. It means a lot to me and to Keith, who's sitting here. We're recording my studio. I'm wearing my Celtics jersey, Boston Celtics.
Yep.
Just won the NBA championship, bitch.
Nice.
So that's cool.
That's cool.
And Keith sitting across from me. Oh, wait, you should end the episode. Why am I still locking? All right. I was almost going to just introduce the next part of the episode. I feel like. All right. Listen, folks. Thanks so much for listening. And Keith.
Yep. See ya.
There you go. I was pointing at him to do his thing. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. Okay, can you open the workshop?
Yeah.
You did put the stopper on it.
Oh, yeah. It's so hot.
I know. It's just you and me, Keith. We're just two sexy little boys.
Sweating it up.
I know.